He's a civil rights activist and advocate. He's an author. He serves as an opinion columnist for the Detroit News. He's the founding dean of the Post Institute, an anti-poverty think tank. He focuses on racial equity, civil rights, and economic justice. He is the author of Fiery Conscience, a collection of essays and reflections on justice and conscience. He frequently writes and speaks on issues of systematic racism and inequality. And my friend, you and I are fortunate to have him as our lecturer for tonight. I believe that the preacher ought to have a Bible in one hand, but you ought to have a newspaper in the other. And so tonight, that's why we're receiving him into this sacred place and space. Would y'all help me receive our kin and friend? Come on, give it up for Mr. Bankole Thompson. Come on.
Good evening. To Reverend Solomon W. Kenlock Jr., thank you so much for the invitation to be here. To First Lady Robin Kenlock and to the members of this church, thank you so much for the invitation to be here this evening. The last time I was here was 2 years ago when we were sending away Mother Janae Kusa Kenlock, the mother of Reverend Kenlock, who rightfully so was born in Dillon County, South Carolina, on the plantations. And I believe that Mother Kenlock is looking from the grave, smiling at Reverend Solomon Kenlock, asking Socratic questions, demanding answers, and pushing the envelope. You know, I wear many hats in this town and around the nation, but this evening I'm here as a prognosticator of economic justice. The theme this weekend is the Black Church and the fierce urgency of now. And there is no better place to begin than to reference the greatest American in the history of the American Empire, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the founding father of modern America, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a premier global citizen known throughout global history, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I brought with me this evening, Reverend Kenlock, a book that is called The Final Testament, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? This book, written by Dr. King in 1968, has a lot of lessons for us as black folk. And I'm here this evening to talk to us. And Dr. King said, and I quote, he said, "We are faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We're confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. There is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action," unquote. In another speech that Dr. King gave in Nashville in 1957, documented by Stanford University Martin Luther King Center, Dr. King said, "Another area in which the influence of the church is much needed but little felt is that of the economic order. The disadvantages that Negroes suffer in this area are startling. In many fields, they cannot get jobs at all. In other words, they are employed at appallingly low rates. This is a tragic end. It is strangulation of the moral, physical, and cultural development of the victims. So long as these blatant inequalities exist, in the economic order of our nation can never come to its full moral, economic, and political maturity. As guardian of the moral and spiritual life of the community, the church cannot look with indifference upon this glaring evil." Martin Luther King, 1957, in Nashville, Tennessee. We look back at what Dr. King said and put it into context in Detroit. Put it into context in Washington, D.C. Put it into context in New Orleans. Put it into context in every major urban city in this nation. You ask yourself, how do we look economically? How many people are in here who have experienced joblessness or have family members who have experienced joblessness? Let's see by hand. That's it. Economic strangulation. Dr. King said we must address the economic strangulation that is affecting the black community. And what is the role of the church? The church has an important role to play. You know, sometimes I hear mumblings. Well, the church cannot get involved. Oh, I need my pastors to stay out of that. I said, excuse me? Let me repeat again. Excuse me? Yeah, I know they are listening. Oh, yes, I know they are listening. Copyright Bankole Thompson this evening. The church cannot get involved. Oh, I don't want my church to be involved in, I just need to go to church and that's it. Well, that's because you don't know your history. That's because we don't know our history. The first black institution in the history of the American Empire was the African Methodist Episcopal Church, founded by Bishop Richard Allen, an abolitionist, a prophet, a political advocate, a political activist, Bishop Richard Allen. That's the history. Now, would you have told Bishop Richard Allen not to get involved? That you prefer to be enslaved? Let's think about that. I don't want my church to get involved in the fierce urgency of now. The church should only be concerned, Triumph ought to be concerned with only the four walls here. Don't care about families outside of this church. Think about that. How asinine that is. And that is the nihilistic thinking that we are dealing with in this community. Folks who have seen to forgotten that history. Go ask Archbishop Desmond Tutu, spiritual father of the anti-apartheid movement. Oh, the church cannot get involved. Let Nelson Mandela rot in jail. Go ask Adam Clayton Powell in Harlem, New York. The church cannot get involved. Dr. King referenced the late Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell in this book. I'll read it to you in a minute. The church cannot get involved. They don't know their history. They have selective memory, selective amnesia. Think about that. The church has been central. The black church has been central in the development, in the empowerment of our lives. Reverend Kenlock, I remember in 2015 when 9 parishioners at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, were gunned down by a white supremacist. A young white man walked into that church, the audacity to maim and massacre. I remember that weekend I got a call from my late good friend, the late Bishop P.A. Brooks. He asked me, would you come and give the keynote address at New St. Paul Tabernacle that Sunday to put in historical context why those killings took place. And I talked about why it meant for Bishop Brooks to do that. Because Bishop Brooks understood that the church cannot be a bystander. That the church cannot be lackadaisical. That the church cannot look the other way. Bishop P.A. Brooks understood that the church must be involved in the liberation of black lives. Before it became fashionable, Bishop Richard Allen of the AME Church was engaged in Black Lives Matter. That's what he was all about. Because Bishop Brooks understood that the church cannot be a spectator. Every pastor, every church has the inherent power to speak out. Now, if your pastor or your church chose not to speak out, that's on them. But don't tell other pastors or the churches not to speak out. That's on them. Bishop Brooks understood that ministers must have integrity, must have courage. Ministers must understand, in addressing the fierce urgency of now, that this pulpit should not be for sale. That this pulpit is not for sale for 30 pieces of silver. And in this era, and I've written about this, I've spoken out about this, sometimes Negroes, we sell ourselves so much with a discount, 20% discount. No, it's no longer 30 pieces of silver. It comes with a discount, 50% discount. Oh, and then we're in the clearance section. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Ministers of integrity. Ministers of courage. The fierce urgency of now, when your pastor walks into a room to demand economic justice, do you feel comfortable? Or is he going to walk in there and say it's all about me, 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 me? Think about it. We got folks who are saying, oh, stay in your lane. Pastors need to stay in their lane. I said, hold on. Let's go to Brother Malcolm. The house Negro and the field Negro. Stay in your lane. This is 2025, brother. This ain't no plantation. I'm not in no plantation. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you tell ministers to stay in their lane? How dare you? Would you have told Archbishop Desmond Tutu to stay in his lane? Would you have told Reverend Leon Sullivan at Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia to stay in his lane? Would you have told Reverend Raphael Warnock, U.S. Senator, to stay in his lane? How dare you? Because you don't know your history. Or because, I guess, the life of a house Negro sometimes make people lose their minds. We need to go back to decolonizing our minds. That's what we need to do. The fierce urgency of now. The church has been the centerpiece of our lives. The black church has been the centerpiece of our life. The black church ought to be involved. Its primary responsibility is to protect the black community. Let me repeat, the primary responsibility of the black church is to protect the black community. So how can you say my pastor cannot be involved in policy debates? How can you say my church cannot be involved in what the city council is doing, in what they're doing in the mayor's race, or what they're doing in the governor's race, or in the presidential race? How can you say such a thing? When the primary role of the black church is to protect the black community. We got folks running around talking about, well, I don't know if pastors understand fiscal policy. I said, hold on. No. Listen. I got a problem with that. That's called political mendacity. It's political mendacity. Reverend Leon Sullivan wrote a book titled Build, Brother, Build. Reverend Leon Sullivan, Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia, the largest black church. He was so remarkable that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. will invite him to provide training for SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I sit on the national board of the SCLC now. Dr. King will invite him to train SCLC ministers on the concept of Operation Breadbasket. The largest black church in Philadelphia, Zion Baptist Church. An economic thinker. Now, would you tell Reverend Leon Sullivan, who runs the largest black church, who led a boycott that forced corporations to employ black people, would you tell him he doesn't understand fiscal policy? How do you think he ran Zion Baptist Church? If he did not understand fiscal policy, how could he have run Zion Baptist Church, the largest black church in Philadelphia? You don't know your history. This is part of the problem. We have Negroes who think they know so much that they've forgotten from whence they came. And I'm coming to the final. I need to read something to you from this book. And so we got an issue. How do you think these ministers with these churches around the area, around the nation, how do you think the late Reverend Adam Clayton Powell, Abyssinia Baptist Church in Harlem, would you tell him he doesn't understand fiscal policy? I mean, think about that. I mean, you have to wonder sometimes, Reverend Kenlock, where are these Negroes from? I mean, how are they made? You have to wonder. You have to wonder. You know, I say sometimes, and I've said this, I strongly believe in the impact that we make. That's why I said I'm here this evening. I wear many hats, but this evening I'm here as a prognosticator of economic justice. I believe that our contributions must be documented. I believe that we all have a role to play. I believe that we cannot isolate ourselves from the conditions that we are facing. Just because you're better, just because you've done well. Oh, I know. I know. Oh, we got lots of folks who have done well. And they want to be the only ones in the room. Oh, talk to us. We don't want anybody in the room but us. In the last 2 decades, they've been in the room. What has happened? What has happened? And they still want to be in the room. Still want to be in the room. And let's talk about the challenge of the fierce urgency of now. Oh, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. What role did you play? You know, I'm okay with you being the first Negro in this room. That's okay. Good for you. That's nice. That's nice. Reverend Kenlock, I go to a lot of places. Folks walk up to me, Bankole, I'm the first Negro. I say, that's great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Sometimes the first Negro who did this may not mean anything. What is your contribution? You get in the door, you lock the door, say no one comes in but me. That's right. And it's good for you. You keep advancing, but your community does not advance. So I say when they roll you into this church, and Reverend Kenlock's supposed to give the final prayer, whose name did you want them to invoke? Do you want them to invoke Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, that you walked in the footsteps of Mandela, King, Adam Clayton Powell, Shirley Chisholm? Or do you want them to invoke the white folk you are trying to impress? Let's have some real talk. When they roll you in here in your final hour, I know they're watching. Whose name do you want them to invoke when they roll you in at your final hour? Is it Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Shirley Chisholm, or the white folk who you were trying to impress? And you were willing to shoot down your own people to please some folk. The black church and the fierce urgency of now. Think about it. Dr. King said, let me read this for you. I want you all to listen to this. He said, the new task of the liberation movement, therefore, is not merely to increase the Negro registration and vote. Equally imperative is the development of a strong voice that is heard in the smoke-filled rooms where party debating and bargaining proceed. A black face that is mute in councils is not political representation. The ability to be independent, assertive, and respected when the final decisions are made is indispensable for an authentic expression of power. Negroes are traditionally manipulated because the political powers take advantage of three major weaknesses. The first one relates to the manner in which our political leaders emerge. The second is our failure so far to achieve effective political alliances. The third is the Negro's general reluctance to participate fully in political life. He goes on to write, the majority of Negro political leaders do not ascend to prominence on the soldiers of mass support. Although genuinely popular leaders are now emerging, most are selected by white leadership, elevated to position, supplied with resources, and subjected to white control. The mass of Negroes nurtures a healthy suspicion toward these manufactured leaders. Let me stop there for a minute. Manufactured leadership. See, what manufactured leadership believes is that there is no fierce urgency of now. We're good. Let's take it slow. Oh, we don't need to rush. Oh, Detroit is coming back, y'all. You know, it's coming back. We're good. We're good. It's great right now. Yes, it's great for you. You know, Dr. King talked about those who like to drink the tranquilizing drugs of gradualism, do-nothingism, and standstillism. Those are his exact words. Oh, let's wait. For another 50 years, it's going to fully come back. There are two Detroits. Oh, Bankole, you know, y'all too hard. Take it easy, man. You know, it's going to work itself out. That's not what you did. You walked in there and took care of yourself. You didn't sit in that room and say, well, it's going to work itself out. No, you went in there with a list. I need this to take care of myself. I need this. I need that. I need that. I need y'all to hook me up. And I need some pork chop on the side. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. So you went in and did that. But you have the audacity to tell us who are demanding economic liberation to wait and let it work itself out. Go to sleep. When Dr. King said in this book, we need to be awake during a period of great social revolution. Think about it. You know, we got so many manufactured leadership walking around here. Oh, they don't want to hear this subject matter. Oh, this is too much for them. It's like drinking a bitter pill. It's too much. And we have to be watchful. You have to pay attention. Don't fall for the propaganda from manufactured leadership. Don't fall for it. Do not fall for it. The church has to get involved. If your pastor is not getting involved, you need to ask why. Let's look at it numerically. The people who are the victims of the foreclosure crisis, economic inequality, they sit on these pews. I was here a couple of months ago to pay my respect to two young black kids who were found dead in a vehicle in a parking lot in the downtown Detroit casino. Think about it. Got no help. Nothing whatsoever. Yes, and I said it on social media. If those were two white kids, what do you think would have happened? What do you think would have happened? Somebody would have gotten fired downtown. Yes, I said it. Copyright Bankole Thompson. But those two black kids come from backgrounds where they've been economically disempowered. The victims of economic inequality. The ones that manufactured Negro leadership doesn't want to see. That have chosen not to see. Made them invisible. In the words of Ralph Ellison, they see everything else but me. Invisible man. Think about it. If those were two white little kids, Oh, so many people would have been fired. I know how it's done. Oh, listen. W.B. Du Bois was right. The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Do not get it twisted. You know, some of these folks get it twisted until they get fired. Reverend Kenlock, that's when my phone gets blown up. Oh, you know, Bankole, you know, he was a top Negro. I said, that's great. And they start quoting Du Bois, Souls of Black Folk, you know. Yeah, but when you were in that position, when you were in that room where you locked the door and you said you want to be the only Negro in the room, you were not quoting W.B. Du Bois in that room. You did not quote Frederick Douglass, who said, power demands nothing without a demand. You did not. But all of a sudden, they got rid of you. Now you want to quote Douglass. Now you remember what Martin Luther King said. I'm finishing up. Dr. King said, the majority of Negro political leaders do not ascend to prominence on the soldiers of mass support. He said, experience tells them that the color is the chief argument their leaders are offering to induce loyalty. The Negro politician they know spends little time in persuading them that he embodies personal integrity, commitment, and ability. He offers few programs and less service. Tragically, he is in too many respects, not a fighter for a new life, but a figurehead of the old one. Hence, very few Negro political leaders are impressive or illustrious to their constituents. They enjoy only limited loyalty and qualified support. This relationship in turn hampers the Negro leader in bargaining with genuine strength and independent firmness with white leaders. The whites are all too familiar, aware of his impotence and his remoteness from his constituents, and they deal with him as a powerless subordinate. He's accorded a measure of dignity and personal respect, but not political power. So I come by to tell you this evening, what we need is political and economic power, not a modicum of dignity and respect. Oh, Mr. Thompson. No. Economic power, economic freedom. That's what Detroit needs. That's what Washington, D.C. needs. That's what New Orleans needs. That's what Atlanta needs. The historical template has been laid down. Detroit is a city with great ministers who spoke truth to power, who were involved in the political process. I remember the late Reverend Nicholas Hood Sr. at Plymouth United Church of Christ to be on the city council. Before he died, he would write me letters almost every other month. In fact, one time I was at a Click restaurant. His daughter-in-law, Federal Judge Dennis Page Hood, came up to me and said, my father-in-law is a big fan of your work. Reverend Nick Hood Sr. was involved. There were other ministers who spoke to power, like Bishop P.A. Brooks. You know, in 2014 or 2015, I went to Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church to speak at their 95th anniversary church service. I talked about Reverend Frederick Douglass. All this giant legacy. But for some reason, there are folk who are saying, well, my pastor cannot get involved. You know, pastors need to stay in their lane. Since when did that become a norm? I'm trying to understand the asinineness, this level of nihilistic thinking, this level of political mendacity, to say the church had to be divorced from political issues, that your pastor cannot get involved in the liberation struggle. If the pastor cannot get involved in the liberation struggle, who else should get involved? Who else should get involved? Bishop Richard Allen was an abolitionist. Who else should get involved? And you know what? If those ministers were not involved, these Negroes would not be here today. Whether you like it or not, I don't care what room you've walked into. I don't care how much white folks say you're the best in sin sliced bread in the black community. I don't care how much whatever they've given you. I don't care whatever mess of partake they've given you. I don't care how many pork chop you've received downtown. If not for Bishop Richard Allen, if not for the founding fathers in the black community, if not for those black preachers, Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Bernard Lafayette Jr., Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, Reverend Joseph Lowry, you would not be here. You would not be in this place. Thank you so much. The Black Church and the fierce audience of now.
Come on, everybody, put your hands together. Come on, thank you for speaking truth to power, standing all over the room.